Bim, guess what? We're live. Waiting for Boris. He should have started 20 minutes ago, but for some reason has decided to hold on. This is an emergency briefing, which is live in 8 minutes, and it's regarding the COVID variants that are currently going on in certain parts of the country. I live in Wigan, so near me is Bolton, and you've also got Blackburn, and no doubt there's probably stuff going on in other parts of the country. We are due to have some more restrictions lifted on Monday. It's Friday at the moment, which include hospitality opening indoors, and various other bits and pieces as well, like be able to go around to see your friends and have more mixing and that kind of thing. But I fear that they are going to say that that's going to get put back again. So let's get the really annoying lag out the way before Boris speaks. Oh, live broadcast is starting shortly, but I can't show you that because I get thingy with the music, which is really annoying. Yeah, as soon as I switch this tablet on, it just goes There we go. So, my opinions on this. We do not, unless this variant is not killed off by the vaccine, then we don't need another lockdown, because all the people, or 99% of the people who would end up in hospital, who would end up in intensive care, who would end up dead, have had the vaccines, and 50% of them have had 2 vaccines. So it's very unlikely that even if there is another outbreak, it's going to affect the NHS, and the reason for the lockdowns was to protect the NHS and save lives. So if the NHS isn't going to be put under stress, then I don't think we need a lockdown, and I think a lockdown would be unnecessary, in my opinion, which is worth nothing. I'll be honest, my opinion is worth nothing, but that's where I'm at. However, I think there should be martial law set out for teenagers, particularly, who don't wear face masks when they're out in public. They should just be shot. I mean, it'd be brilliant. Might be a bit extreme, but so annoying. Just because they've got makeup on, or they think they're butch and manly. Girls and boys, that, well, could work both ways, couldn't it, I suppose, these days. Yeah, no, you have to wear a mask. That's the whole point of the thing. But the thing is, the people who are spreading this and the people who are getting it are the ones under the age of 25. To be fair, they're less likely to end up in hospital. So just let it go. That way, they're building up immunity as well for the future. So why go into lockdown? Why do anything else? Let's just roll with it. Now, as you know, I've been agreeing with all the lockdowns and calling for lockdowns in the past because they were too slow at starting, they were too quick at ending, and I don't agree with the thing he did about India, when obviously horrendous things are going on in India, and he said, oh yeah, well what we'll do is bumble bumble waffle waffle, we'll put them on the red list in a week's time. No, you put them on a red list there and then, now. If there's a danger, then you put them on the red list. You don't give them a week to get back, because all that happens then is they all come flying back, and then they all go home, and if 20 of them bring it back with them, before you know it, there's thousands with it. So that should have been done. So you got that one wrong. If you go abroad for any reason during a global pandemic, then you're either very stupid or you have to accept the consequences of those actions. And if that means you get stranded in a country where things have gone horribly wrong, and have been going horribly wrong for a while, then whose fault's that? It's not our fault. So stay where you are. Or if you come back, you quarantine in a hotel out of your own pocket. You can't have it both ways. Fuming. Mind you, I was saying this last year, if you remember. when people were still going on holiday, and then moaning at the airport about, oh look, oh, we've been on holiday, we've come back, and look, Boris has said that we have to do this, that, and the other. Ooh, I'm not doing it. Ooh. No, you go on away. That's it. And to be fair, that's what the Australians are doing. I follow a lot of Australian news channels on Twitter, mainly because you get a different view of politics and everything else, even in the UK, from Australian news. So that's good. But they were saying that there's like 9,000 Australians trapped in India, and I'm like, well, yeah, and they shouldn't have gone to India, or they shouldn't have gone out of Australia, particularly Australia. You know what they're like. They won't even let you take a panda in there. Not that they've ever tried, but I imagine if you did try, they wouldn't let you. They'd be like, no, you can't do panda. Because that's what they talk like at customs. I've seen it on the telly. So, let's see what Boris has to say. It's worrying that it's been put back half an hour. It's like, but if this variant that they're on about, or one of the variants they're on about, because don't forget, the more people get it, the more chance there is of variants. The more variants there are, the more chances there are variants that are not killed off or held back by the virus, the vaccine. So if that's happened and we've got one in which is now not being affected by the vaccine, then yes, we probably do need to go in another lockdown, annoying as that is. But it would have to be national. Regional lockdowns are pointless, because if you shut Bolton down, for example, so Bolton pubs cannot open, right? No Bolton pubs, no restaurants cannot open in Bolton at all on Monday because of the stuff going on with the rise of infections in that area. Same with Blackburn, same with wherever else. Then the people of Bolton will come to Wigan, or the people of Bolton will go to Manchester. The people of Bolton will go to Preston. They won't think, oh well, we'll stay here. That's not how the human mind works. It's like, well, we can't do it here, but we can do it over there. So then you get the virus just spreading then around. So you either do it nationally or you don't do it at all. Not really. To be fair, I don't have a problem with people meeting outside. I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's an issue. Because we had the BLM marches last year, roughly about a year ago, and we had the really nice weather. Do you remember when the weather used to be nice? A year ago, and everyone went to the beach. But there were no spikes, there were no outbreaks, no nothing from those events. So I think outside is safe. The problem you have is when people meet indoors, and that's where the issue is. Lockdown hasn't really affected me, King Charles. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you've just joined this channel. Loads of other political observations, plus loads of other stuff as well, just random schnizzle. Still waiting for Boris. He's now officially late, which is not unlike Boris. It's a bit like me, be late for his own funeral. Oh, ironically, I've not had the vaccine, even though I've been eligible for a while. Not because I don't believe in vaccines, I just don't want something in my body that's not been in any person's body in the world for less than a year. So you can do as many tests as you want, but you can't time warp things that are in you inject into someone's body. It has to be there for a while to get reactions to it. So that's why I've not had the vaccine. Plus I think I'm pretty healthy anyway, and I think I had it over a year ago anyway. And all it did was make me lose my sense of smell and taste. I've not got any brothers or sisters. I'm over it now though. Oh, waffle, Boris. Come on, Boris. Get your ass into gear. We've got the 6 o'clock news coming up. The BBC will be panicking. Oh, Balderdash. What we're going to have to do, we're going to have to put back the BBC 6 o'clock news to 6:30. We're going to have to put the local news till 7, which means we'll have to cancel the one show. Every cloud has a silver lining. So we're still waiting for Boris to pop his head out. He's should have been doing this at 5, and it's now 17:31. I've got the Downing Street YouTube channel running on my other screen, so as soon as anything occurs other than some naff music which is copyrighted, then I shall... She's doing okay for the... I don't think the pandemic's really affected me mother, apart from the first injection. Second injection she had, she just mentioned it in passing. First one nearly killed her. Second one, it was like, oh yeah, and I'm injection, my second injection. I'm like, what? Yeah, just threw it in like, oh, I blew my nose yesterday. And the first one hospitalised her and made her ill for 3 weeks or more. Yeah, I know what you meant, Kate Sarah. Right, it's now 2 minutes late. It's like waiting for a train. Oh God, I hope not. I hope we don't get 3 Borises at once. God, that'd be embarrassing. 3 Borises. So we're just waiting for Boris to pop up and tell us that they're ignoring this and we're just carrying on as normal, or we're going into a localised lockdown, which is pointless if you just joined us. Localised lockdowns, completely pointless. You either do it nationally or you don't do it at all. And I don't think there's any need for another lockdown unless the variant they found is not sorted by the current vaccines, in which case we go for another lockdown, and I'll back it 100%. But I'll have to back it 100% even if I don't agree with the lockdown. But like I said earlier, 99% of the people who end up in hospital, who end up in ICU and end up dead, are vaccinated now, so there's no need necessarily for a lockdown. Oh, come on, Boris, you're 3 minutes late now. Oh, let them all wait and wait. Pile up waiting. Waffle. Waffle. Boris, yeah. I wouldn't vote for Keir Starmer if he was the only person in the election, I'll be honest with you. As I've said many times, the reason we've got a crap government is because we've got no opposition. And we haven't had opposition since this government came into power. Corbyn was a waste of space. Keir. Who is Keir? Who is he? Who is he? They were paraphrasing the late Nicky from Big Brother. Yeah, people say he's more concerned about wallpaper than he is about politics. And you have to agree. I mean, I don't give a monkey's left dangly bit who pays for decorating anywhere. I couldn't care less. All I worry about is as few people as possibly dying. Most people, even though I'm not having it, are getting the injections who need it. The economy's recovering and everything's going to go back to normal. That's all I care about. I don't care about decorating. I don't care about anything else. All I care about is that. And I care about having an opposition that challenge the government to do the right thing. And I don't get that with Keir. That's funny. Dominic Cummings was held for review. I wonder why. Must know he's a dick. No, he's a barrister or something. He's one of them who wears the wig. Bit like the Dark Destroyer out of The Chase, which reminds me, I'm missing The Chase for this. And now he's 5 minutes late. Dum. Oh.
Everybody, thank you for joining us. Throughout this pandemic, we've tried to keep people abreast of the latest information as soon as we get it. And since I spoke to you last Monday, we've seen further clusters of the B617.2, the variant first observed in India. And we've seen it especially in Bolton, in Blackburn with Darwin, and some other parts of the country. At this stage, there are some important unknowns. We believe this variant is more transmissible than the previous one. In other words, it passes more easily from person
I think
to
we know what
person,
transmissible
but
means
we
after
don't
a year
know
of this.
by how much. I'm told that it's only marginally, I'm told that if it's only marginally more transmissible, we can continue more or less as planned. But if the variant is significantly more transmissible, we're likely to face some hard choices. And we're going to be learning a lot more in the coming days and weeks about that. The good news is that so far we have no evidence to suggest that our vaccines will be less effective in
that's all that
protecting
matters.
people against severe illness
That's
and
all that matters.
hospitalisation.
Let the under-20s have this
So that
virus.
means we're in a different position from the last time we
Yeah.
faced a new variant before Christmas because of the scale of our vaccine rollout,
Yeah.
which Public Health England estimates has already saved almost 12,000 lives and prevented over 33,000 people from being hospitalised. So I believe we should trust in our vaccines to protect the public whilst monitoring the situation
Jazans.
as it develops very closely, because the race between our vaccination programme and the virus may be about to become a great deal tighter. And it's more important than ever, therefore, that people get the additional
I need to put
protection
myself on this picture.
of a second dose. So following advice from the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, we will accelerate remaining second doses to the over 50s and those clinically vulnerable right across the country, so that those doses come just 8 weeks after the first dose.
Right.
And if you are in this group, the NHS will be in touch with you.
That'd be nice.
We will
Another
also
letter I can ignore.
prioritise first doses for anyone eligible who has not yet come forwards, including the over 40s, and I urge anyone in those groups to come forward as soon as you can. At this stage, there is no evidence of increased cases translating into unmanageable pressures on the NHS.
Right, so we don't need a
even
lockdown.
in Bolton, and infections, deaths and hospitalisations nationally remain at their lowest levels since last summer.
Right.
So, and this
So what's
is
the
a
point of this then?
balanced decision. I do not believe that we need, on the present evidence, to delay our roadmap, and we will proceed with our plan
Right.
to move to step 3 in England from Monday. But I have to level with you that this new variant could pose a serious disruption to our progress and could make it more difficult to move to step 4 in June. And I must stress that we will do whatever it takes to keep the public safe. Our surveillance and data gathering is now so advanced that if there was a danger of the NHS coming under unsustainable pressure, we would see the signs in the data very early on and could react in good time. And that gives us the confidence to continue moving forwards for now. But I urge everyone to exercise the greatest caution, because the choices we each make in the coming days will have a material effect on the road ahead. To those living in Bolton and Blackburn, I'm very sorry that you're once again suffering from this virus, and I know how hard it has been for you, having been in a form of national or local lockdown for longer than almost anywhere else. But now it's more vital than ever that you play your part in stopping the spread. So we won't be preventing businesses from reopening on Monday, but we will be asking you to do your bit. Take the vaccine when you can, get your free twice weekly rapid tests, and
Yeah, basically,
if you do
which
test positive,
I think
you
he's been
must
waiting for me to come on,
self-isolate.
and
We
he's
will provide
listening
financial support
to what I
those on
said
low
before he's come
incomes
out on
to help them
stage.
do so.
This is my theory.
As we move away from living our lives by government rules, and as we
Don't
learn
forget
to
to
live
like, share,
with this virus, then,
subscribe
as
as well
I
if
said
you enjoy
on
these
Monday, we need to
videos.
make our own decisions about how best to protect
doing
ourselves
chicken dance now.
and our loved ones, informed by the risks.
Yeah.
And for those living in Bolton and other affected areas, there is now a greater risk from this new variant. And so I urge you to be extra cautious. Our best chance of suppressing this variant is to clamp down on it wherever it is. And we'll be throwing everything we can at this task. Colonel Russ Miller, commander of the Northwest region, will be deployed to support local leaders in managing the response on the ground. There will be surge testing with mobile testing units, and the Army will be on the streets handing out tests. And there will be targeted new activity in Bolton and Blackburn to accelerate the vaccine take-up amongst the eligible cohorts, including longer opening hours at vaccination sites. And to everybody else across the whole country, wherever you live, please get tested twice a week for free and get a jab if you're eligible.
If you want to see what it's like to get tested, I did my first test in my last vlog.
Social distancing from those
New normal vlog.
And if you're seeing loved ones, think really carefully about the risk to them, especially if they haven't had that second dose or if it hasn't yet had time to take full effect. I want us to trust people to be responsible and to do the right thing. That's the way to live with this virus while protecting the NHS and restoring our freedoms. And it's very clear now we're going to have to live with this new variant of the virus as well for some time. So let's work together and let's exercise caution and common sense. Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Chris to do the slides.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Hi, Chris.
First slide, please. The first
Mr.
slides
Personality.
are very familiar to people watching these briefings. The first one is the number of people testing positive for COVID-19 in the UK, and as you can see, that has been on a steady downward path and is stable. In terms
Well,
of
it's
the
had to write it
overall
down when I was saying it, Auntie. So you use shorthands and you do it big.
We're also
'Cause I
seeing,
talk quite
as
fast.
people will be aware, a steady decrease in the number of people in hospital with COVID-19 in the UK, as this graph shows.
Yep.
Next slide, please. And the number of people who have died following a COVID test has also been steadily decreasing and has remained very low and remains low now. So the most recent 7-day average is seven deaths.
That was 10 for 7 days, but I'll let you off.
Now we move on to just the newer information, and I'm just going to expand slightly on the data that's there. So what we have here is the weekly number of sequence cases in England of the variant B1617.2 first detected.
Yeah, you'll be right. You'll be right, Sarah.
And as you can see,
Probably don't hug him,
this
though.
is on a steady upward curve. This is an exponential growth. At the same time as the B117, which is the principal one circulating in the UK at the moment, has actually been on a downward slope. So there is no doubt that this is going up. And earlier this week, we said that we thought that it was as transmissible as B117 and possibly more so. There is now confidence, and SAGE has looked at these data, as have various modelling groups, that this variant is more transmissible than B117.
I've loved the social distancing. People not getting naming cues and things like that. It's been great.
Is this
they get a gobful if they do, though.
than B117? Or is this a lot more transmissible? And that will have implications for the long-term prospects of this epidemic in the UK and indeed the pandemic internationally. Next slide, please. And this is most clearly seen at the moment in Bolton, although I want to be clear that Bolton is not the only place that has this variant. It is quite widely seeded in a number of parts of England and indeed elsewhere in the four nations of the
So you can see by that graph that the ages 0 to 59 are going up, and most of them will be under the age of 30,
really now
to be honest.
To go up,
the over 60s who've been vaccinated are going down. So let it go. Let it go. Let everyone catch COVID who's under 40. Let it go. We'll go for herd immunity with the under 40s. It's probably safer, to be fair, than having the AstraZeneca vaccine if you're under 40.
With people subsequently going into hospital and some people becoming very severely ill and sometimes sadly dying. So this may be a delay, or it may be that the vaccine is helping to protect those who are older and who are vaccinated, and that's an important part of what the Prime Minister has just said. Next slide, please. And if we look at the Greater Manchester area, around the area where Bolton is, as you can see, there isn't at this point in time a significant uptick in the number of people being admitted to hospital. But it's early days, and I think this is the point which we wanted to stress, is this is the first time we have been completely confident of the increased transmission. We now need to see what happens over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Next slide, please.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Chris. Let's go to questions from the public.
Is Chris Whitter's having a bad day? Poor Chris. Oh, here we go.
If the variants of concern, such as the B1617
What's he done to his eyes?
increases in transmission to an extent whereby it would result in major hospitalisation, how soon would you implement restrictions, and how many hospitalisations would result in further restrictions?
Well, I'll tell you
Thanks very
by
much,
looking
Alexander.
directly
Well,
at
I
the
think the answer
camera
to that
and
sort of
over accentuating
flows
my mouth.
pretty much from what I said earlier on, and that is that as soon as we saw that there was a risk of a really serious increase in hospitalisations on a scale that would
You didn't stop
would
people
risk
coming back from
overwhelming,
India soon
the
enough,
NHS
otherwise
in
this
an
wouldn't have happened.
exponential growth. Then, of course, we would implement further restrictions immediately. And the purpose of this press conference is really to alert people to that necessity and to the extent of the risk that we now see in this Indian variant. But Chris, anything you want to add to that? Thank you. Let's go to Josh from Corby.
Oh, Josh.
With universities reopening next week and the restrictions on social gatherings soon to end in June, especially nightclubs, when can the under-30s expect to receive the COVID vaccine? Thank you.
There's a picture of a dead baby on his wardrobe
Chris, I'm
then. What the
gonna
hell was that?
For your view on the under-30s.
Thank you. So the as I think everyone knows, what we're doing in the UK is going in a very steady but hopefully rapid and steady progression in terms of vaccination, starting with the most vulnerable people. So those are people particularly of older age, but also with pre-existing health conditions. So obviously some people in their 30s, either because they're health or social care workers or because they got pre-existing health conditions, have already been vaccinated, and people indeed under 30. But for the rest of the population, we're going in a steady downward progression in terms of age, and the reason for that is that the risk is very strongly correlated with age, and so but the rate of vaccination is continuing to be very steady now. We've actually got to the point where people are in their upper ages of their 30s, so
Yeah, that's a good
38
point.
and
They had the
39, and
G7
this will
meeting, didn't
steadily
they?
move down over the next weeks.
It all went
being
horribly wrong.
vaccinated. We hope to get all the way through to everybody having their first vaccine by the end of July. That is the aim. Additionally, as the Prime Minister has said, there is for people of all ages now an aim to accelerate to some degree the point where people get their second vaccination. And there are some advantages to having a second vaccination later, and some data on that in fact came out in the last couple of days. But what we do want to do is make sure that people have their second vaccines, and that's why the Prime Minister talked about the fact we're shortening the period from 12 weeks to 8 weeks. And this is because we think that people who've got a second vaccine will have greater protection not only against the original variants but also against this new variant. So it is very
It looked like
important
then, it
that
looked
people
like
get their
a
first
Thunderbird's
vaccine,
puppet,
also
just
go
kind
on
of
to get their
staring
second
while
vaccine. And
mouth
there's very
going.
clear evidence that people are taking that offer up very strongly across the UK and indeed
But it's
in
talking
Bolton,
sense, so.
and surrounding areas.
Thanks very much, Chris and Josh. Fergus Walsh of the BBC.
Oh, good old Fergus.
Prime Minister, how likely do you think it is that the final unlocking will go ahead on the 21st of June? And for Professor Whitty, do you think that all those over 18 in hotspot areas should now have immediate access to a first dose of vaccine?
No.
Thanks, Fergus.
18-year-olds don't get ill from
Everybody will
it.
be asking that question now. I think the truth is that we at this stage simply can't say for certain as things stand. You've heard it today that the numbers of infections, even with the new variant.
Doesn't matter
remain
how many under
low
18s
overall
get
across
it
the-
or under
across the
20s get
country.
it.
Even
A
in-
very,
in
very, very,
Baltimore,
very, very
there's been
finite
this,
percentage of
spike
them will
the
end
new
up in
variant. We're
hospital.
not seeing,
It will not put pressure on the hospital.
significant new
So
numbers
let
of
them get it.
hospitalizations. It remains
Tell all
broadly
under 18s
flat.
and
The
whatever. You
situation
don't
is-
have to wear
is
masks.
different
Don't do
from,
anything. Go and kiss your
last year.
friends.
In this
You
crucial
know, like you
sense,
have
we are
chicken
in
pox
the throes
party.
of an extraordinary
Because all their
vaccine
elderly
rollout, which
relatives and
everybody
relatives
knows
at
and-
risk at
and
home
understands.
will have had the vaccine
So,
by now.
We've just got to wait and see, those two things: the extent to which the new variant may be more transmissible, and also the extent to which the vaccines have been able to cut the link between infection and hospitalization and death. And that we just need to see a little bit more about that. I'm afraid, Fergus, before we can be really say much more at this stage. We will continue to proceed with caution, but obviously we rule nothing out. And as soon as we can say more about stage 4, obviously we will.
On the question you asked me, there's been a debate about this, but the JCVI, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, which brings together all the experts on this, has been very clear on this. Now, the fundamental issue is that we have a finite supply at any given moment in time of vaccine. So if you vaccinate one person, by definition, you're not vaccinating another. Now, what do we know certain things about these vaccines? We have very high confidence that the vaccines provide very substantial.
Why do deaf people not need to know about this?
People dying and people having severe
I'm
illness
confused.
and people being hospitalised. Less protection against people having more mild disease, and some protection, but less still against transmission. And the expectation is with new variants that if you start to lose
get
some
back in
vaccine
here.
efficacy, you lose it in the opposite direction.
So it's
in
boss.
a sense, you first lose the very low protection of people having asymptomatic or very mild
Comedy of
disease.
errors.
Then you lose the protection against the more severe disease, and finally against the really most severe disease and people having mortality. Now, the reason I'm giving that long preamble is it's to explain why it is that the thing we know this vaccine absolutely can and should do is to protect those who are most vulnerable, and that is very heavily predicated by age with this particular virus. So therefore, if we took vaccine away from groups, let's say in their late 30s, and transfer them to groups of people who are 18 or 20, who are at much lower risk of severe disease, the view of JCVI, and I think this is the majority view, it's not an absolute view, but the view of JCVI has clearly been this would lead to a net disadvantage overall. So the sensible thing to do is to prioritise the vaccines to those who are most at risk in all the places across the UK, because the virus is a risk absolutely everywhere, but there are very strong aims to try and accelerate and make easier vaccination in the areas which are most affected by this virus. So it's not that we're not trying to take the geographical spread of this new variant, the B617.2, into account. We very much do want to do that.
Thanks very much. Emily Morgan, ITV.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Given that the easing of restrictions is still going to go ahead on Monday, what would you say to someone who's planning to travel to Baltimore
because they come back to you for
to visit family? Would you say that they should still go, and should they stay the night?
Thanks, Emily. And I'm very glad you asked that, because I do think
missed
it's
a bit of it,
important
'cause
that in respect
someone's
of
getting very angry.
the areas where we are seeing these spikes, these higher incidences of the new variant, given the caution that I think we have to exercise with this new variant, the risk of extra transmissibility, I would urge people just to think twice about that. That's what we're saying. I think that we want people in those areas to recognise that there is extra risk, an extra disruption, a threat of disruption to progress caused by this new variant, and just to exercise their discretion and judgment in a way I'm sure that they have been throughout this pandemic, and will continue to do so. I hope very much. Okay, thank you. Sam Coates of Sky.
Oh, look at
Prime
him.
Minister, these are your 4 tests for moving to the next stage of the unlocking of the roadmap. The 4th very explicitly says that there can't be variants of concern changing the assessment. Given that cases of the Indian variant have almost tripled over a week, how are you saying that you've passed that test? How are you giving a green light on that?
Because they're not changing the assessment, because it's not putting people in hospital.
Can you only say that you've passed these?
Oh, shut up, you stupid Sky person.
If you just looked at one region,
This is why I don't
like
watch
the
Sky
Northwest,
News.
might you find that you actually fail several of them, and would you lock back down regionally? To Chris Whitty, there's some data out today suggesting that the Indian variant isn't really rising in the over 45s, a bit younger, I think, than you were saying. Is that right? And to Sir Patrick Vallance, according to Public Health England data, at least 122 passengers arriving from Delhi and Mumbai between late March and April the 26th were carrying this variant. In retrospect, do you think it was a mistake not to close the border from there sooner?
Well, Sam, I'm going to try and pick up the question you directed to Patrick, since he's unfortunately not here. You probably can't see that for some reason, but I will just say on the borders issue, the relevant committee was looking at was the threat of variants of concern coming from abroad, and at that stage, India was not identified as having a VOC, a variant of concern. So that was why the decision was taken. Pakistan, for instance, I think had 3 times as much of variants of concern. They had, in particular, the South African variant. So that was the reason for that decision.
Yeah,
but don't forget,
India should have been locked down earlier.
Forgive me, from India or indeed anywhere else, had to face very, very tough quarantine rules. They had to self-isolate. They had to produce their passenger locator form and so on. But on the your fundamental question about the 4th test, I do think that I just go back to the original point. We are concerned about this variant. And that's the purpose, and we're serving notice that we do think, I think, that it certainly may cause disruption to our attempts to continue down the roadmap. But they don't, at the moment, change the assessment about.
As long as no more people are dying,
because if you look at the numbers,
the hospitals are not getting overloaded, we don't need to do anything. We just let it go.
A significant increase in.
Come on, Boris, burst into song.
And the overall
show us your blue dress you've got underneath
remain,
that.
As we've heard.
Or get your girlfriend to come out and do a
low and
let it go dance.
Quite flat.
Let it go,
so they're not changing the assessment.
Oh, look at him! Look dead serious there.
But
I'm a proper journalist, me. Look at me.
That the public need to be aware of this variant, and particularly in areas where it is more prevalent, and that's because of these questions about increased transmissibility, and we just need a bit more time to see how that pans out. And as I said earlier on, whether it's at the higher end of increased transmissibility or at the lower end. If it's at the lower end, then I think we don't have very much to worry about. But if it's at the higher end, then we will certainly have to think about what extra measures we need to take to protect the public. And I want to be clear that we will react fast. We will react as soon as we can see clear and unambiguous data about this, and we will do whatever it takes to protect the people of this country.
On the questions you asked me, and I'm actually going to pick up on the 4 tests additionally. And if you think about the tests and compare them to where we were this time last week, virtually everything is the same situation. There is one very important difference, and that's the one I want to concentrate on, but just to go through them. Vaccine deployment program remains successful. Vaccines reducing hospitalizations and deaths, very clear evidence they are, nothing has changed on that. Infection rates not causing NHS pressure, you saw the data on that, it's really clear. And on the variants of concern, excluding the B617.2, really no change. Most of them are relatively flat. They haven't gone away as a threat, and but they are staying relatively stable. In terms of the 617.2 variant, One thing also remains the same, which is our current assessment of the vaccine.
Why don't they just name them
likelihood
like
of the vaccine being
storms?
effective remains what it was.
So
which
variant
is
1
it will
is
probably
Abigail,
protect against severe disease,
variant 2 is
and
Brian,
hospitalisation.
variant
We're not
3
so
is
confident about the degree to
Carrie,
which it protects against milder disease and transmission, and that's just we
and
don't
so
have
on.
the data. That will
It'd be a lot
come
easier
from.
than
The thing which has changed
746999175B.
is the very clear view now, I think if everyone has looked at it, that this is more transmissible than the B117.
We can
And
all drink liquor, but not from the
over
same
time,
bottle.
This variant will overtake and come to dominate in the UK in the way that B117 took over, and indeed other variants have taken over prior to that. Now, as the Prime Minister said, there are kind of some things that we really want to look for, and the most important is this a bit more transmissible, or is this a lot more transmissible? If it's a lot more transmissible, that would imply we could have a really significant surge. If it's a bit more transmissible, that would imply we will have a bit more pressures, a bit more of a race between the vaccination program and the virus, but we are broadly in the same territory. So that's a really critical question to which we do not yet have the answer. And then the other thing we do not yet know is in practice what the impact of the vaccination program, and this goes to your second question to me, the question about people over 45. We don't yet have a big enough number, I think, to be confident about this. It could be that it is initially circulating in younger ages because that's what has always happened previously. You start off, people mix more and younger, the initial circulation in younger ages, and then it moves up the age range. So maybe it's just a delay because of that, or maybe it's a delay because the vaccine is actually providing a fire break, a barrier to reduce the transmission up the ages into those who are most vulnerable. Clearly, the second of those is by far the more preferable. But that we cannot say with confidence at this point, and that's the reason we need to look very carefully at this new variant, see how much faster it's growing than the old variant, and look at this issue about vaccines in practice.
Thanks very much. Sam Lister, The Express.
That's very gothic, isn't it?
Thank you, Prime Minister. If you were forced to take the drastic decision to delay June 21st,
What you don't realise is that's an 18-floor flat
how long
apartment.
will that delay be? Will it be a matter of weeks or months? Will we still get the great British summer that we were promised? And to Professor Whitty, given the Indian variant is spreading mainly among young, unvaccinated people, should those people in those groups avoid taking advantages of the new freedoms being introduced on Monday, such as going to the pub?
No, get them to the pub, get them to get the vaccine,
Sam,
get the virus, get over
I really
it.
can't
get
speculate
antibodies.
about that in too much detail at this stage, because as you've heard earlier on, there's just some things we still don't know about this new variant.
To be fair, if
We
the
just need a bit
new
more
variant
time.
comes
I
along
think
and
a couple
kills
of
us
weeks
all,
we
you'll
will
never
know
get old and grey.
much more than we do now. But I just want to say that I know this has been a kind of one of those press conferences when everybody hears something slightly disappointing or slightly worrying in the sense that there's a new variant that is a significant concern for us, does pose the real risk of disruption to our plans, and I've got to be absolutely clear with you about that. But it is also possible, Sam, that we could still be on the right track. We could still be set fair, and the big difference between this discovery of this new variant now and seeing the spike that we're seeing in Bolton, the difference between that phenomenon now and is that and last Christmas, last December, is of course that we have the vaccines, and we're in a very different world now. But as Chris says, we need to be absolutely clear about transmissibility and about the effect of the vaccines on this new variant, and we'll know a lot more in a couple of weeks. Hugo Guy of the Eye.
You were scratching his nose then? Oh shit, I'm on.
Thank you. Prime Minister and Professor Whitty, what effect
What's the
will the
coat
decision
hanger
to
doing there?
prioritise second doses of
They
the
could have shut
vaccine
them doors.
have on the rollout overall? Does this mean younger people will have to wait longer to get their first dose than they would have previously expected?
Yes.
Or is the government finally going to dip into its stockpile of more than 10 million doses that have been delivered to the UK but not yet administered and perhaps speed up the overall pace of the rollout to match Wales, which, as you know, is now quite far ahead of England, Scotland and Northern Ireland in how many people it's reached with at least one dose.
Chris,
I can certainly take that. I mean, the prioritisation of the second doses will not, we think, delay the situation, the rollout for people who are in younger ages, and there are a number of reasons for that. But the one of the key ones is that the JCVI advice is that, except if rates went up very high, and we were not at that stage yet at this point in time, their primary recommendation is that people under the age of 40 will be vaccinated in most cases with one of the messenger RNA vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, whereas the revaccination program is largely at this point with AZ vaccines. So the expectation is this should not lead to significant delays. We don't have that trade-off, which has been the issue elsewhere. It is, though, to reassure people, we are very clear that we still want to maintain a slightly longer gap in terms of vaccination, 8 weeks rather than the rather shorter periods in some countries, and that is because we do think there are some advantages to that. So we're doing this relatively steadily. That was the advice from JCVI, and I think they've given some information about that today.
Thank you very much. Alistair Smythe of Reuters.
Prime Minister,
cool dude. Look at them.
Do you think you might one day look back on the decision to ease restrictions across the whole of England this Monday as a big mistake? And with international travel restarting, should Brits realistically expect to get a summer holiday, given the risk of importing new variants, as happened with this one? Thanks.
Thanks very much, Alistair. And on the, I think that we're in a different position from, much of the past year, 14 months, 16 months or so, simply because we were able to see so much so early, and thanks to the testing that we're doing, thanks to the genomic sequencing, we're able to spot stuff really very fast. And so what we're trying to say at this press conference is that we do see a real risk of disruption in the new variant. We think that on balance, it's right to proceed with the current plans, given the very low numbers, given the
hospitals
hospitalizations
get to 30% where they were last time. Then we do a lockdown because it's going to get higher.
We're alive
Nip it in the
to any
bud.
change in the
But
data.
at the moment,
and
I don't
we
see the
will
point.
react accordingly. And the same, I think the same spirit of caution should be applied to people who are thinking of travelling abroad. There's a very limited list, as you know,
which could change at any time.
We will certainly be making sure that people going to travelling abroad will be subject to all the tests and constraints that people would expect to prevent the virus being re-imported. That's why it's such a tiny list of countries, and I don't expect that we'll be adding to it very rapidly. And indeed, we will be maintaining a very, very tough border regime for the foreseeable future. I imagine it's just too early, I'm afraid, Alistair, to talk about exactly what the summer will be like. We've seen this new variant arrive. We've been watching it for a while. We're now seeing the risk that it's more transmissible than B117. We have to take account of that. We have to alert people. We have to give guidance and advice to people in areas where it's been surging, even if the numbers are currently low. And as I've said to everybody, we'll know more in a couple of weeks. We'll know a lot more in a couple of weeks, and we'll keep everybody updated as fast as we can. This doesn't mean that it's impossible that we'll be able to go ahead with step 4. I don't think that's the case at all. But it does mean there is now the risk of disruption and delay to that ambition, and we have to be utterly realistic about that. And as I stress again, we take nothing off the table as a means of controlling this virus and this variant, and we will do whatever it takes to keep you all safe. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
I have to be quick, because It does the silly thing where it plays the music. There you go, it's done it already. But hopefully I did it in time. Anyway, there you go. So Boris listens to me. It's official. He's basically said everything I said, which is we don't need a lockdown because the people who end up in hospital and die have all had vaccinations, even though I haven't, but that's not the point. We need to continue to give second vaccinations to older people, and youngsters can just go out and get it because they ain't going to end up in hospital with it, and they will get the immunity without the vaccination, which will save us money. So it's a win-win-win. So basically, carry on regardless. Ironically, I had a lot of Carry On films in the shop today, but not Carry On regardless, ironically. Anyway, I'll give some more advice to Bojo another time, but that's it for now. Don't forget to chat, or subscribe, like and share, because that's the cool thing to do. Probably. And look after yourselves, stay safe, and if you're under 18, go and snog a friend. Doesn't matter whether girls, boys, whatever. Just get that virus and get it over and done with. As long as grandma and granddad and any ill relatives have had the injections, obviously. Don't just do it willy-nilly. And certainly don't do that. Oh, well, yeah. Oof. Oof. Anyway, on that bombshell, I'm going. Thanks, Toff. Thank you, King Charles. I'm not saying the rest of it. For your interactions. Hopefully you've enjoyed this and my thoughts, and I will see you all again next time. So thanks for watching, indeed you still are. I'll be seeing you. Until then, here it comes. Bye!